Yanis, let me interject another question here. Let's assume we have a borderless world, but the very nature of corporations and technology is in effect to create oligopoly or monopoly simply because the learning by doing, the engineering specialists, all of that create a hegemonic position in almost every product line. If that continues or occurs, then you, by definition, can't have enough purchasing power to balance off the system worldwide. Let's assume the world is one country. You have some dominant, powerful corporations. They, in effect, turn into monopolies simply because of increasing returns to scale. There's no need to pay out everything to workers or anybody else, and you automatically create piles of capital, again looking for investment opportunity. And unless you can tax away, in some sense, that monopoly and redistribute it to pay, let's say, government expenses, you're only going to recreate the same conditions that you created in this world of borders. Your comment on that?
Oh, I agree entirely with you. You only have to look at the United States of America to see this unbalanced growth. When you're in Louisiana as opposed to when you are in Texas or California, you see within one nation, one country, without borders, this kind of uneven development. In Germany, you go to Eastern Germany and you'll see a spectacular failure of German policy, industrial policy, to reinvigorate what used to be an industrial sector there. Go to Italy, the Italian South, after 100 years almost of unification of the land, the Italian South is like a different country, a third world country compared to the Italian North. So markets will never recycle capital in a way that creates even manufacturing capacities and development. Never. They will always fail. So what we need is extra market industrial policy. And if we need it in Italy, if we need it in the United States, we need it across the world. The original idea behind the World Bank was to plug this gap. Unfortunately, the World Bank has been operating as an agent of underdevelopment in the countries that should be developing. But that doesn't mean that we couldn't do it differently and better. Already we have evidence in Brazil from development banks there, state-controlled development banks, that surplus recycling directed towards investment production can make an important difference. We need to take these lessons and apply them in the United States and across the world. But we have to do it in a way that is looking at the general good, because we live in it's a very small planet. And we should think of the interests of all of us as utterly interwoven.
One other question, I think we'll kind of close this discussion. One major question, I think, would be energy or oil, the oil situation. I mean, if you look at industrial statistics at the inception of the Industrial Revolution, let's say around 1750, and you plotted the growth of all economies in the aggregate, let's say using a GNP number, and you put against that number the increase in use of carbon energy, you'd find almost a perfect correlation between production, GNP, and carbon fuel usage. A very tight linkage that might be breaking a little bit, but by and large, that's almost an iron trend, which means that access to carbon fuels is going to be decisive for at least another 50 to 100 years, I would imagine, and control of those resources, which are really focused or located in the Mideast, in an area the size of Texas, maybe 70% of the reserves. And then, of course, with fracking and so forth, you're finding reserves around the world. But by and large, there are limited energy resources against the immense productive capability of the world. And therefore, those who control those resources are basically going to decide industrial policy probably for the next let's say, 25 to 40 years. The United States, in effect, does control the bulk of that. When China and Asia, for example, really gear up and muscle up in terms of energy needs, how do you see that playing out? I mean, that's, to me, possibly the most decisive decision point that we're going to have, and it may trump all the other issues of reconvening a new Bretton Woods and things of that nature. Any comments on that? And we'll close the discussion with your comments on the energy policy and the implications from a geopolitical point of view and from the aspirations of, let's say, Asia coming on strong.
There are two issues here that are utterly interwoven. There's the question of global warming and the damage that we're inflicting upon our poor planet. And there's the question of the geopolitics and the way in which scarcity and differential productivity in the energy sector is feeding into rent-seeking behavior in the way that Ricardo and Henry George understood very well. From the planetary point of view, from the environmental point of view, we are behaving like a virus on the planet. And a very stupid virus at that, because we're going to kill the host on which we are parasitic. On the question of the economics of it all, I find that the impact of the particular form of rent-seeking behavior that we have now from the various oil companies and the aspiring players in this market are destabilizing a very fragile and unstable global economy. But I think that from the perspective of the next 50 years or so, one of the major problems we have is that our technology has not caught up. Our technology in terms of energy, the energy sector, has not caught up with our technology in IT, in 3D printing, in all the other realms of manufacturing in particular. And we need a major technological breakthrough in order to make possible whatever political will there is, the world over, to help us turn the corner in the energy market. Do you know what I think we should be thinking about? We should be thinking about the Manhattan Project. Because let's face it, renewable energies are not up to the task for the time being. Fracking is a very crude way of going about the problem of peak oil and all that. What we need is a technological breakthrough that will make genuine renewable energy cost effective. And we are nowhere near doing this. When the Chinese scientists are working on their own, the American scientists are working on their own, the German ones are working on their own. But think about the Manhattan Project. What was the Manhattan Project? The United States administration, in a very difficult moment in world history during the World War, in order to prevent the Nazis from getting to the nuclear bomb, to the atom bomb first, they took the best minds, put them together in Los Alamos, in particular labs, made available infinite resources, almost infinite resources to them, and said, find the solution. We should be doing the same thing, and it should be an international collaborative effort for the purposes of averting this simultaneous, interwoven, ecological and economic problem once and for all.
Okay, Yanis, thanks for joining us on this debate, and Scott, thank you for participating. We'll continue this hopefully another time. We'll mix and match new speakers and new topics, but this was a wonderful debate and covered some very important topics. So we'll say goodbye to everyone who's watching this, and wait for our next in this economic discussion series. Thank you.